This is Aaron Price, CEO of the New Jersey Tech Council. In case you're not familiar with us, we are built to empower entrepreneurs and innovators in New Jersey and in the region. And so if you're not familiar with the Tech Council, check out NJTC.org, become a member, learn about our events. We do lots of live shows, including one we're doing today. I'm really excited to welcome Mark Kolb. He's a partner at Tech Council Ventures. Mark, thanks for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Aaron, it's my honor. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to get these notices on these invitations on very short notice to have a chance to chat with you online. So great. Thanks for having me.
I'm curious of your choice of background. We have a lot of virtual background options. What made you go with the vineyard?
Well, I happen to like Napa. I like wine. I collect wine, and that's a shot I took when we were visiting a vineyard out in Napa. Specifically, it's the Staglin Vineyard. Real great place. They contribute a lot of their profits to support of mental health. So real quality people.
That's great.
Great wine.
Before we get into your venture, the venture part of your career right now, I see you on your spare time like to race cars.
I do like
what and where do you race?
I just race a base Carrera, a base Porsche Carrera. I do it with the local Porsche Club of America. I run up at the Lime Rock. That's a track up, I'm sure you've heard of Lime Rock up in Connecticut. I've been out at Watkins Glen a lot, which I like, and then at a couple tracks in South Jersey.
Very cool. Who knew? Bit of an adventurer.
The thing about racing a car is when you're on the racetrack, let me assure you, you don't worry about anything. There's just nothing in your mind except that next turn. And you can have the most stress in your whole life on every venture investment you've made or every company or this or that. When you're on a racetrack, nothing counts but the next turn.
Have you ever crashed?
No, never crashed. I will say that there's periodic times when I've run off the track. And generally I just land in grass and the car spins around but no, never crashed.
That's good. I hope you keep that record the same.
I hope so.
So before you got involved with Tech Council Ventures, you've been an entrepreneur yourself. Tell me about some of the businesses you've been involved in.
Okay. I've run 5 or 6 different businesses, one in the pharma IT space, a couple in the healthcare IT space, and a couple of medical device companies. And a few of these companies I founded myself. At least once or twice I had been on the board of directors of a company and was, for whatever reason, invited to take over as CEO.
Yeah.
We took one business and that I was on the board. It was focused around patient-reported outcomes. And I ended up transitioning into the CEO role, and then we sold that company to Press Ganey, which is, you've heard, that's $1 billion player in the healthcare space.
Yeah. And how did you get involved? We're raising the profile, I hope, of Tech Council Ventures. But for those who are not aware, tell people about Tech Council Ventures and what you invest in.
Sure. Well, so Tech Council Ventures is a New Jersey-based early stage venture capital fund. We are, I would say, technology or industry agnostic, but we've got a couple of main pillars that we invest in. So we'll invest in the areas of digital health. We'll invest in areas of materials and energy, clean tech, and certainly a lot of SaaS businesses. Let me finish one thought. We'll generally write checks in the $500,000 to $2.5 million range up front, and then keep a couple $1 million reserved for add-on. And people say, is that the seed stage or is it Series A? I don't. That's almost a question of semantics to me. It's really a question of check size. And even though we might only write, say, a $2.5 million check, we just did a financing for $8 million where we led with the $2 million check, and then we had strategics invest the other $6 million. So we're certainly capable of a bigger deal, but ourselves up front usually in that $2 million range.
Got it. And so what do you look for? Well, first of all, what's the size of the fund, and how did you get involved?
It's a $55 million fund. I've actually known my partner, Jim Gunton, for well over 20 years. It turns out when I was running one of my businesses, he was the venture capitalist that came and knocked on my door. He walked in one day and he says, "Hey, do you want some money?"
Literally knocked on your door?
Well, literally, you'll be happy to know this. He literally introduced himself to me at a New Jersey Technology Council function that I went to. So that was 20 years ago, at one of those functions, and he came, introduced himself, said he was, explained the fund, and he happened to be with Edison Venture at the time, and Edison Venture was the fund that invested in my business at the time.
Yeah, and so some people aren't as familiar with the success of Tech Council Ventures, but maybe you could share a little bit about how successful that first fund was.
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that, because it's really an important fact. Jim Gutton's first fund, the New Jersey Technology Council Venture Fund 1, was what's referred to as a top 1% of vintage. And that's exactly what it sounds like. When it comes to specific financial performance, he was in the top 1% with that fund. And as you know, they benchmark the performance of a venture fund against the vintage, because a fund that starts in year 2000 is going to behave differently or perform differently than a fund that that starts in 2005, for example.
Yeah.
So top 1%. And let me just finish. He was top 1%, number one, because he invested in great companies, and number two, because he killed himself to help make those companies successful. And I think that's really the mantra right now, and that's what I hear from my partners, Jim and Steve, every time. We want to invest in companies. We want to invest in companies with great entrepreneurs and great businesses, but we want to invest in companies that we can really help through our networks, through our connections, through our experience. We want to help those companies succeed. I mean, we think of ourselves as partners with those entrepreneurs when we invest in them.
The tagline, I believe, is networked capital, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even getting involved with, obviously with myself in the Tech Council, it's highly differentiated to have a fund associated with a technology group. And I think it brings a really interesting and significant advantage to New Jersey that we've got this group that brings lots of content and inspiration, education to the community, and connectivity right alongside funding where, as you know, I think that there's a real need for more funding in New Jersey. And I think it's such an amazing asset to have these entities aligned.
Yeah, well, and that's exactly right. And from our standpoint, we want to be there to support any of your members. And if your members are looking for financing, certainly whether it's the New Jersey Jumpstart, which is really the angel group, or whether it's Tech Council Ventures, we'd be glad to, for be an organization that your members can look to. And correspondingly, we love the fact that you've got a vibrant and an engaged membership, because that's just good for our deal flow. And those are the smart entrepreneurs that we're hoping to be able to meet and invest in.
Yeah, that's right. And with that in mind, I want to bring on Jasmine Hoffman, our head of experience, where the two of you shared in a show that we launched last week called the Startup Showdown. We had three entrepreneurs come in and pitch to several investors. How was that experience for you?
Well, that was Jasmine. First of all, Jasmine did a terrific job. We had myself, plus we had one of the investors, Allison from Newark Venture Partners, and Kelly from Edison. So we had three New Jersey-based venture capitalists. Allison lined up. There's Allison, and lined us up with three good companies to work with, and it was a terrific experience. In fact, I'm literally going to talk to one of those companies later today as a potential investment.
And that's the whole point. I'm sure you meant there's Jasmine, who has joined us.
Yes, who has joined.
Welcome to the show. How's your experience with the council been so far, and especially what did you learn from our first Startup Showdown?
It's a loaded first question. So my counsel with the experience thus far has been all over the place. It's been in a great way, like invigorating, where we've been able to pivot. We've seen incredible responses to some of the calls to actions that we've shared out. We've been able to create brand new programs and content all remotely, all from our homes, all scheduled through calls and Zooms. It's been really cool to see people come together digitally, especially as a tech council. Startup Showdown was something that was great to work with TCV on. I think it was an awesome joint venture that we decided to do as a way to not only shine light on growing entrepreneurs and startups in this particular industry. It's a great way to give some investors a great opportunity for deal flow in a time when you're no longer meeting people out at events. And it's been great for our entrepreneurial community that's tuning into these shows to learn the do's and don'ts, ins and outs of a successful pitch, and of, quite frankly, creating and cultivating relationships with the investment community.
Yeah, I know you had a question for Mark that you were trying to get into the chat, but we didn't get a chance to address it. Maybe you want to bring that up now.
Of course. So, Mark, and this is a question I can't believe I haven't asked you yet, but to date, what is the best investment you've made?
The best investment? Well, I've been doing angel investing my whole life. Well, I've been certainly the last 15 years. I've only been a member of Tech Council Ventures for the last 9 months. So that's a tough question to ask. I want
maybe not based on return, but what idea got you the most excited in all the years of your investing?
Yeah, I think I'm going to pass on that. I know exactly what I want to answer, and I'm preferring not to answer.
That's all right. I'm curious to know privately what the answer.
We'll have that conversation. I think you'll appreciate. I think you'll understand.
So we're going to wrap it up in a minute. But Mark, for entrepreneurs who are interested in getting to know you and Tech Council Ventures, one, practically, what's the best way to reach out? And two, what should they send? Right, getting your attention is difficult. So what should people share with you to get that first meeting?
Well, certainly any sort of a one-page overview of the business is the simplest for us to get our hands around, and we're available by email right on the website. Even better, to be honest, is if they're connected with any of the entrepreneurs, if they're connected with the accountants or the law firms or some of the bankers in the area that they're working with, if we get an introduction through one of those people, that bubbles to the top pretty quickly because it's people we know and trust. But if they don't have that sort of an entree, then a straightforward email to me. I read every email I get. If somebody sends me in a one page or a deck, we take a look at it. So it's email's a great way to do it.
And Jasmine, before you sign off, what's the best way for people to get involved with and potentially pitch or participate on the next Startup Showdown?
So if you visit njtc.org/startup-showdown, you can apply to pitch on the show. We have our entire series programming schedule up through July with different episodes based on different industries. So you can apply there, and you can always reach out to hello@njtc.org if you want to learn more about Startup Showdown or the council.
Awesome. Thanks, Jasmine. We're going to say goodbye to you before I wrap up with Mark.
Well,
Mark, last thing, what do you think the number one trait is in a successful entrepreneur?
Oh, it's all about the individual. It's all about the motivation and drive, and someone who's just going to. Jim Gunton uses the expression. He says, "I like an entrepreneur who's got a chip on their shoulder. Someone who's got this. It's all about the drive that they're going to be successful, and they're going to walk through whatever wall they have to. Yeah. Drive and motivation
is absolute determination.
Yeah, exactly. Cool.
Well, I really appreciate you joining us on the live show today. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the office whenever we can potentially leave our houses again. But for now, enjoy your virtual vineyard. For anybody watching, look forward to seeing you at the next NJTC events. Keep an eye on njtc.org for a variety of shows we've got upcoming, including an economic forecast at the end of this week, an interview with Al Roker, who you may know from TV but may not realize is also a very active entrepreneur. And we'll see you next time.